Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Oaklands Wolves virtual open evening for the Rugby Academy. Welcome. If you do have any questions throughout the presentation and after, please do put them in the live Q&A box, and we'll go through them at the end. So now I'll pass over to the head coach, Chris Waring, who will go through a presentation and who will be able to answer all of your questions at the end. So over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Lizzie. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into the virtual open evening for the Men's Academy at Oaklands College. The presentation will be around about 40 minutes or so. I'll try and get through it as quickly as we can. As Lizzie said, if you have any questions, just pop them on in the Q&A box as she described, and we'll have a Q&A at the end. The slides, as we go through them, are designed to kind of give you a little guide through certain to signpost you to certain checkpoints on the college website. So things like facilities tours and stuff which we aren't able to actually do physically at the moment. So you will get tomorrow a copy of the presentation as a recording, and you'll get a copy of the slides, which if you play as a slideshow, you will be able to access the links, and it will signpost you to certain things that might be important given that you can't actually visit at the moment. So we'll get into it now. So a little bit of history and background of the program, where we started and where we are now. So 2006, Saracens Academy actually set up the Oaklands rugby program at the college. So it was manned by one Saracens Academy staff. So he did everything. He coached. He was strength conditioning coach. He was kit man. He was everything. And then eventually it kind of grew from there. So the picture on screen now is most of the first cohort. There were 21 male-only student rugby players at the college at the time. There was one team that we travelled around the southeast of England playing against good college teams in a fairly amateur type league setup. There was one course option, so everyone was doing a BTEC in sport, and we had a few people who had moved to the area to attend the college, and they were hosted with host families who lived nearby. So in contrast to where we are now, so this is a picture taken, it's not 2021, but it was taken early 2020, I think, or even 2019. We now have approximately 80 male rugby players on the program. We've just recruited 12 female students as well to be on the rugby program, so the women's rugby program is starting to take off. We've got 2 men's teams that we run. We have run as many as 3 teams at some stages as well. Multiple course options, which we'll have a look at as we get into through the presentation. There's a coaching team rather than just one individual responsible for everything. And we now have a purpose-built residential block. So we currently have 37 rugby players living on site, including males and females. So we'll have a look at the residential options as well. So as I mentioned, the women's program is starting to kick off as well. So this year was our biggest cohort. We had a well-attended presentation last week for the women's program. So we're hoping to at least double our numbers on that as well. So we'll have 2 fully fledged rugby programs sitting side by side. So if you do happen to know any female rugby players who may be interested, who may not know about us yet, please point them in our direction, and we can certainly support them. So some links for you to look at in your own time. So there's a campus tour. I imagine most of you probably haven't been to the campus before, so it gives you a little guide around the campus. It's developing all the time, so there's new builds going on all the time, and by the time you get 2 years from now, the campus may look quite different. You can have a look at the sports facilities that we use, so the artificial pitches, the indoor facilities, the gym, etc. And then at the bottom there's the rugby information booklet, which I strongly advise you go and have a look at. It gives a lot of information in one place about solely dedicated to the Rugby Academy. So it's well worth a look at that as well. The arrow shouldn't be there. So having a look at the club and college, so a little sort of, this is a little guide of where we how the program looks overall. So looking at training first, we separate into two tiers of performance. We've got a performance tier, so these are our higher end players, so they may vary from England international players, Saracens Academy, through to sort of county level players, but certainly we do not, it's not a prerequisite of being in the performance tier. Anybody who is in who fits the criteria for being one of the better players in the program will be in that performance tier. And then we have a development tier as well. So in terms of competition, we have a first 15 and a development 15, which play most weeks, and that is complemented by club rugby. So frequently a question we have is, do I have to leave my club if I come to Oaklands College? The answer is no, although saying that, there are certain times of the year that we prioritise certainly the first 15 rugby, and we may ask there to be some give on the club rugby on a Sunday, but then there'll be certain times of the year where that gets paid back in terms of club rugby. County rugby, pathway rugby will start to take priorities. So how this feeds into the performance pathway, so we've got Saracens Junior Academy. So currently we have 6 players in the junior academy at the college. So they were already part of Saracens Academy when they arrived, and there is an opportunity for players to find opportunities to make their way into Saracens Junior Academy as well from the outside. The county pathway system runs alongside. So if you're not in Saracens Academy, you can go through the county pathway system. That can take you as high as the England under-18 counties team. We've had a few boys over the last few years actually get to the England counties and get capped at England counties level under 18. The junior academy feeds into the senior academy. So at 18, once they leave school, college, they will be offered a contract, and then they're a part of the senior academy. And then that obviously feeds into the Saracens men's team, and then beyond that you've got international rugby. So just for reference, and we have the women's competition side by side. So the women, so they will be fundamentally getting their rugby from club rugby, due to the sort of nature of the women's game not being being limited playing opportunities perhaps for the women's game in comparison to the men's game. We will play certain games throughout the year if we can achieve the numbers that we're hoping to achieve. But then you've got the performance pathways, which kind of starting to mirror the men's pathway as well. So we've got a Saracens development and the Saracens women and the county pathway system alongside it. So a little bit of just background in terms of the women's, which may not be relevant, but it's worth knowing. The ultimate aim of our program is to transition players from junior rugby into senior club rugby. Now, whether that's playing at Saracens at the highest tier of the game, whether that's championship or the tiers below that, we want to get individuals into good clubs and good universities from our program, and certainly we have achieved that over the number of years we've existed. So looking at the rugby and study, so what does the program look like from a rugby student's perspective? So you'll see a list of academies that we have at the college here. So we've got athletics, basketball, cycling, football, hockey, multi-sport, netball and rugby. So all of those except netball are both male and female now, so they have both offerings. In addition, you can choose one of these academies. So obviously you're interested in the rugby, which is why you're here. You can add to that various options within BTEC, A-levels, MVQs, BTECs and A-levels. So a combination where you combine a BTEC with an A-level. And then additionally, if you don't have the correct grades at GCSE, you will be expected as part of your course to retake GCSEs. And then we have what we call the DISE program. So this is the Diploma in Sport and Excellence. We'll look at that as we get further in. This isn't for everybody, but it's a selective group of players will be selected to do the DISE, which is an additional qualification. And then adding to that, you have work experience, which is around about 30 to 40 hours per year, which is an expected part of your course. It needs to be related to your course. So for example, if you're doing a business course, you will be expected to do 30 to 40 hours of work experience throughout the year related to business. And then usually every other year we will run coaching and refereeing qualifications, which is the first sort of step towards becoming a coach, which is the pathway some of our students like to take, but it's also an opportunity to start to be qualified to be able to coach professionally. So we have students going off to coach some of these rugby tots and sort of junior rugby teams and getting paid to do it whilst they're at college, which isn't a bad way of earning money. So to give you some sort of idea of what the weekly schedule looks like. So we're a Monday to Friday college. Our training all operates in the morning, so it's anywhere from 8 o'clock through to about 12:30. So training takes place Monday, Tuesday, Friday morning. So it's blocked out for those times, and we'll have a look at what the mornings look like in a little bit more detail on the next slide. Matches are handed over to on Wednesdays, so the whole day is handed over to rugby. So for reasons being, we have to travel the length and breadth of the country. So we travel as far as Newcastle, Cornwall, Manchester. So we need to have that ability to travel without having to remove players from lessons. Then you'll see lessons wrap around our schedule. So our program is unique in as much as the rugby is scheduled within the working day and lessons are factored around the rugby. That's not to say the rugby is more important than the lessons. Actually it's the opposite. It's just it allows us to deliver a program, a quality program in the working day. Now, where we have some complications arise, so we'll have a look at the options on the next slide, what your study options are. Now, if lessons happen to clash with training, the lessons would always take priority. So this quite often the case. If you have to retake GCSEs as an example, quite often you will lose one of your training sessions during the week, which isn't ideal, but it's workable. So that's just something to be aware of. So one thing to think about at the moment is making sure you're trying to achieve your GCSEs at Maths and English, so you don't have that you don't have that added to your timetable, an already stretched timetable when you arrive. If you happen to choose a course that isn't on the next list, it may not work perfectly with our rugby schedule. So the academic options you've got BTECs, A levels, City and Guild, which is the MVQ qualifications, and then GCSE retakes across the top. So then we've got level 1, 2 and 3 down the side. So level 1, so start at level 3. Level 3 is the equivalent to an A level, so I think most people are most familiar with A levels as their point of reference. So level 3 is equivalent to doing A levels. Level 2 is equivalent to doing GCSEs, so sort of year 10 and 11 level work, and then level 1 is just below year 9 type levels. So within BTEC, we have an offering at level 1 in sport. We might have 1 or 2 players on who need to do that in any one year, so that's an option there. We have level 2 sport, business and uniform services. We have level 3 sport and exercise science, sport coaching and development, sport fitness and personal training, and then we have business and public services. Now you've got 3 different options. Sport is probably our largest offering in terms of our most popular offering in terms of rugby students, so they'll be spread across level 2, level 3 and a couple on level 1 each year. Now to get into the differences between what is the difference between sport and exercise science, sport coaching and development, sport fitness and personal training, I've signposted you to the virtual open evenings that the departments did, so and you'll be able to get that information there. So I'm not going to go through that in this presentation because it will sort of lengthen it out too much, but I'll signpost you to that in the coming slides. Now, business and public services are available at level 3 as well, and then these are the range of A levels that are on offer. Now, the green ones are deliberately timetabled for the rugby program, as we saw. The orange ones may or may not work. Obviously, there's any number of combination of A-level options you could take, and we can't guarantee that any 3 A-levels will fit perfectly. Some fit perfectly, some don't fit at all, but usually fall somewhere in the middle, somewhere in that range. And then we've got a couple of students on engineering. We didn't necessarily deliberately timetable for engineering, but we've had a couple of really good students on it in the last 2 years. We've got one in year 1 and one in year 2 at the moment. It's over at Welwyn Garden City campus. And we've actually built a good relationship with the head of department, and because they're such good students, they help us out when it comes to timetabling, which is kind of the message to get across here. Is if you have a particular study option that I don't list here, do apply for it, and then contact me, and I'll go to that department and see what we can make work without making any promises at this stage. There's also a combination studies option where you can combine a shortened version of the BTECs listed here. So the level 3 BTECs is listed here. You could combine that with an A level also listed here. So that might be something that is of interest. So for example, you could do a sport and exercise science BTEC, a shortened version of that BTEC, and combine it with history, for example. And you'll come out with the same level of UCAS points, the same equivalent qualification as if you did a full BTEC or if you did 3 A levels. So we've got city and guild options. So we've got plumbing, electrical installation and carpentry across level 1, 2 and 3. So most will start around about level 1 because the basics of plumbing, electrical installation and carpentry need to be learned. But if the grades are particularly good, they might fast track you straight to level 2. And you might start on level 2 and progress to a level 3. So ultimately, we can give you a 2-year course doing a city and guild option, whether it's plumbing, electrical installation or carpentry, and you can run the rugby alongside it. So that's quite becoming a more and more popular option for our students. And then, as mentioned before, the GCSE retakes, English and Maths, if you need to retake them because you don't have a level 3 or higher, I think it's level 3, it might be level 4, I think it's level 3 or higher, then that gets added to your timetable. And obviously in the stretch timetable already, something has to give, and the rugby will be the most likely thing, will be the thing to give. And other options are on the curriculum. So if you look on our website, there's a broad range of course options. If you have a particular interest in doing a course that I haven't listed here, please do apply for it. Contact me, and then I can start open up the conversations with heads of department and seeing if we can try and get one of the groups within that study option to work to some degree with the rugby program. It may not be perfect, but we can usually get something to work. So to find out more about other courses, we've got a couple of links for you here. So you've got the virtual open days, which happened before Christmas. So that will take you to a YouTube, a list of YouTube videos where they recorded the presentations specifically for each course. And then course finder here, so you can click on here, go to the course, peruse the courses that are on offer and see what appeals to you. The Diploma in Sport and Excellence, which we touched upon earlier. So this is a qualification for elite athletes. So it's brought in, we're currently running our 2nd year of it. So the Diploma in Sport and Excellence is a diploma that has been running in across different sports for a number of years, and rugby got given an allocation of places on the program 2 years ago. So we're currently in our 2nd year of running the program. So we will select players to offer this to. We get a limited number of places. It's usually between 8 and 10 places per year, and we will select students that fulfill the criteria to do this. It's embedded mostly into the rugby program, so the day-to-day of the program with additional modules across a diverse range of subjects related to developing the professional athlete. We've got things such as nutrition, psychology, physical development, technical and tactical skills, careers, lifestyle, and so on. So most of it will be delivered actually in the day-to-day running of the rugby program anyway, but then there'll be additional workshops. Currently we're doing online calls. We have a full-time member of staff who actually delivers this, whose main role is to deliver this program and bring in the right expertise to deliver stuff to you. So for example, we have access to Saracens nutritionists to deliver the nutrition program. So you'll sit down with a Saracens nutritionist, go through a nutrition diary, put some things in place to improve it, and then gain from the benefit of their expertise to deliver their particular area of expertise. And it's equivalent to getting an A-star in A-level, so it's an extra A-level, which is a real bonus if you are applying to university in particular. It can be enough to get you into your first choice university if perhaps your grades on your BTEC or A levels aren't quite as you'd hoped. And actually universities, good rugby universities, will be looking at DISE students because they will be top of the tree in terms of rugby ability, and that will help you certainly in your UCAS application. So looking at how we structure our academy, as we mentioned earlier, we've got a performance tier and a development tier, and what can you expect within each of those. So both whether you're in performance or development, you'll have 3 pitch sessions per week. You'll have skill sessions, 2 to 3 per week if you're in the performance group. That could be either indoor in the sports hall or outdoor on one of the artificial pitches. And then you'll have 3 gym sessions per week. The development tier, you'll have between 1 and 2 skill sessions. That might be indoor or outdoor. We can guarantee 1 gym session per week, but we try and get as much as we can. It's just having access to facilities, and then outdoor conditioning sessions as well, 1 to 2 per week as well. So in terms of competition, the ACE League is the pinnacle of our year. It runs from September through to December, so it's a short season. It's a short competitive season, but it feeds into the Academy League, which takes place from December through to February, which then feeds into the internationals, so which is the Six Nations during February through to March. The performance, once we get into the second half of the year, the pathway system starts to take a bit more priority over college rugby for the performance tier, but then we do have development fixtures as well, which the development group will participate in. Both will complement their rugby with their club rugby, where it's appropriate, and the ultimate goal is to start to transition them, particularly once they head towards the end of their second year, just turning 18, is to start to transition players into senior club rugby as well. And then the support services that we wrap around their training and competition. So the performance tier will get an S&C individual programming. So we have an S&C coach on dedicated to the rugby program. Same with medical and physio support, nutrition support direct from Saracens, regular one-to-one reviews, additional coaching, and additional analysis. And then the support for the development tier will have an S&C led gym and conditioning, so it might not be quite as individualized as the performance tier, but it is still a quality provision. Then medical and physio cover, and then we'll have biannual progress reviews with relevant coaches. So it's an offering for both the performance tier and the development tier of player. Now, how we choose these players, we don't make any selections before players arrive. We start to work that out after the first 2 or 3 weeks, usually at pre-season. Whether that happens this year or not, I'm not sure. So usually at pre-season, or whenever we get the first opportunity to have a look at players, we will start to divide players into groups. Now, those groups can change, and they always do change as the 2 years progresses. So just because a player might start in one of the development groups doesn't mean they can't progress to the performance groups. So what does training look like? So we've got strength and conditioning. So we've got a performance gym. We've got qualified strength and conditioning coaches who deliver on that individualized programming. We've got physio and rehab. So we've got the philosophy of prevention is better than cure, but we've also got a physio dedicated to the rugby program in case for the inevitable injuries that do happen with rugby. Now, the rugby side of training, we've got team sessions, so we have games to prep for. So they will be focused around performing on the Wednesday. So putting the team together, making sure they're going to perform how we want them to perform on a Wednesday. But then we've got also individual skill sessions. So, for example, you've got position-specific skills like scrummaging, as you see in the pictures here, or it might be hand catch-pass skills, contact skills, all designed to improve their individual skill level in whatever facet of the game we're focusing on at any one time. So a typical training morning looks something like this. So we've got a team session towards the end of the morning, but before that you might have a skill session and then a gym session, and then beyond that, adding around that, you might have video analysis. There might be a physio or rehab treatment if you happen to be injured at any one time. You might have a DISE workshop if you're one of the DISE students, and then there might be one-to-one review meetings and skills and stuff. So you can see it's quite a packed morning. So it's not just get out on the pitch for a couple of hours and then come back in, change and go to your lessons. It's a taster of what professional rugby looks like. So the coaching and support that you have. So the programs evolved to require a large coaching team. So we'll see the personnel that we have employed as college staff are myself, Chris Waring on the left. I've got Daniel George, who's the lead men's coach. Lewis Soames, who's the DISE coordinator, so he's responsible for running the DISE program and organising that. Rocky Clark, who is the lead women's coach, we've just employed this year. Sonny Swift, who's an apprentice coach. Joe Ellis, men's S&C, and then Laura Clint, who's our sports therapist. Adding to that, we also have an official partnership with the academy. So we have James Tyrrell, who is an academy coach. He visits regularly to support sessions, support group sessions, but also to add to do one-to-ones, small group stuff with the Saracens academy players who are at the college. We have strength and conditioning coach from Saracens and the physio from Saracens, who will also visit to look after the academy players that we have at the college. There may also be another coach that used to be Kelly Brown, but he's since moved to Glasgow. So they are in the process of replacing him. Obviously with COVID, it's not happening particularly quickly, but we should have somebody in post. They will have somebody in post who will add input to our program fairly soon. We have Harry Wayne, who's a women's S&C coach, but employed by Saracens, so he's the senior women's S&C coach for Saracens women. We have Martin Simpson, who's the academy analyst, and we have George, who's a nutritionist at Saracens as well. So we have all this input from Saracens Academy as well. So playing opportunities. So how does your year look in terms of where do you get your competition from? So term one, in terms of men, we've got women on here as well. We'll have first 15, development 15. So the H League takes priority in term one, so we're talking September through to December, and then we've got development 15 We try and match up as many second 15 fixtures with the age teams that we're playing, to try and make sure we're able to give a quality program, a quality fixture list to the development 15. The ACE League consists of teams that are linked with other colleges. So, for example, we go to Worcester, who are linked with Worcester Warriors, Myerscough, who are linked with Sale Sharks, Newcastle, Gosforth, who are linked with Newcastle Falcons. So all of the Premiership teams now have links to a college, and those colleges are now form the ACE League. So we're in the North Pool, so we'll play 6 games in the North Pool, and then it goes into a playoff system, which is concluded in the middle of December. We also complement the development 15 with club rugby at that time. Now, the first 15 might not play as much. We'll try and guide first 15 players away from club rugby as much as possible, understanding that we don't want to actually remove players completely from the club system for a big period of time. We want to support clubs as much as possible, but this 3-month block is our kind of window where we have to prioritise our ACE League. So the women, we'll get past this. It's term 2. We've got pathways. So this is where the priority changes slightly. So we've got the pathways. So we've got the Academy League. So a number of players, the academies will have their own leagues. So Saracens Academy will play London Irish Academy, Worcester Academy, Bristol Academy, etc. And we'll have players who are selected within that league. If they're not, we'll have some players who will go down the counties pathway, which is a trial-based system, starting at county level, progressing to London and South East, and then to England counties level. And then there's development friendlies as well. So the idea of development friendlies is to start to prep players for who are in year 1, who might be progressing to hopefully play ACE League rugby in year 2, or it might just be the right level of rugby for players who aren't on the pathways. We also have Sevens program, which kicks in sort of February, which certain players will suit and will prioritise. And then certainly year 2s at this stage, it's looking at senior club transitions. So if they're not with the pathways, the development games aren't the right level of game for them, we'll start to look to transition them into the best level of senior rugby that they can get. And then the women follow a similar pattern. So ultimately, what we're trying to look at, our philosophy is players should be playing 1 game a week, but it should be the best level of rugby that they can get at any given time. So certainly in term 1, the ACE League is the best level of rugby that they will get. In term 2, development fixtures might not be the best level of rugby that a certain player can get if they can get better rugby at club, and certainly at senior club level or in the pathway system. So opportunities and benefits associated with being an Oaklands rugby student. So the rugby program is scheduled into the working day. So that's quite a major factor. If you imagine, if you don't go to our college, or if you don't go to a college that factors in today, you might be tagging rugby training onto the end of the school day, working your gym and everything around it without necessarily dedicated staff in place to support that. You might be going to club training in the evening and then having to find time to do gym in the other evenings as well. So if you are really dedicated to improving your rugby and becoming a better rugby player over this period of time, then this should be an option that is worth consideration. We have facilities and expertise in house. So you've seen the staff. You will hopefully have a look at the facilities we have. So it's set up for sports, set up for performance level sport. You'll get regular coaching from academy staff. So you'll see Kelly Brown, who's no longer with Saracens, but he would regularly support our program. James Tyrrell down at the bottom, regularly supports our program still. There's also options. Hopefully this video is playing, but it may well not. Opportunities to be seen by Saracens staff and other clubs as well. So where we're travelling to teams, this is a game that we played up in Newcastle against Gosforth. So you've got Saracens Academy will see this game on video, and you've got Newcastle Academy staff watching the game and facilitating their program as well, so you get eyes on. So this video is a video of Finn Parker, who's got a hat-trick in this game, and as a result of this game and games previous to this, he ended up getting selected for Saracens Academy, and unfortunately injury got in the way of being selected after that. But it shows the opportunities that lie being at the college. He's had more access to academy staff than he would have had he not come to this college or gone to a different school or college. And that opportunity presented itself. So you get opportunities to play against the best college teams in the country as well. So you'll be playing against academy teams. So there's teams such as the Hartbury, who are obviously well known as a very strong rugby college. You've got the Bath College, which will have 10 to 15 academy players in it at any one time. So you'll be playing against the best players that are out there at the moment at that age group. Opportunity to play at Premiership grounds. So a couple of years ago, we played at Bath twice. Actually, played at the Rec twice in one season. Played at Worcester Warriors a couple of times. We played at Newcastle Falcons every time most years we go up there. So there's opportunities to play at really good stadiums and really good facilities. There's a wide range of courses and progression routes, so you can see we've expanded our offering now. Hopefully there's something that appeals in terms of the study options that we've seen tonight, and progression routes we'll have a look at. So this is we have good university contacts as well, and the rugby program's reputation has really adds to any university application. So we have universities who will contact us, ask for recommendations of players. So we'll have, sometimes they will visit us and physically stand in front of a room full of lads, trying to recruit them to their university. This list here is the current Buck Super Rugby division. So you'll see the best universities, the best rugby universities in the country, which happen to also be some of the best universities in the country. So Durham, Exeter, Cardiff, Bath as examples, really good universities, and also really strong rugby universities, which we have had players go to in the past. So being a DISE student, being an Oaklands College rugby student, will only add opportunity to potentially find yourself at one of these really good universities. And actually the university rugby in the last few years, since this Bucks Premier League has started, has really taken off. So it's a really strong level of competition. Purpose-built residential accommodation. So this was new for this year, just in time for COVID to hit, which was excellent. So we currently have, I think it's 83 rooms on site, and we've got 37 students filling those. The rest of them are the other academies. And then we've got a major advantage of our program. We've got academic staff who are supportive of student athletes. They know students come here to improve as athletes, whether that's rugby, football, athletics, whatever. They know that's a large priority for them in terms of their life. So we have academic staff who are supportive of this, but we also have the understanding that the academy provision is a privilege, and it can be taken away at any point. As an example, so for example, if they're not doing their work, or they're not attending lessons, or the behaviour is not correct, we can intervene in terms of academy sanctions as well, i.e. taking training away from them, taking games away from them, and so on. So it's a bit of carrot and stick there, but ultimately it's an educational establishment rather than a rugby club where you're coming to do rugby, but saying that the rugby is an integral part of their working day and their programme. So also we're looking at maximising your rugby development in a supportive academic environment. So 16 to 18, really crucial years as an athlete and as a student. We're hoping that we can maximise both. So looking at progression, we've got 2020 graduates, 36 students left our programme in 2020, 19 accepted places at university, 3 accepted apprenticeships, 2 joined the emergency services, and then the remainder were actively seeking employment, further study or apprenticeships, or were working part-time whilst waiting to make decisions on university and so on. And we had 1 Saracens contract, so we had Javon Warren who wound up getting a contract with Saracens, and he is currently living in a house with other Saracens contracted players and training full-time. So this is an extract from the booklet, which we saw on one of the earlier slides, the link to on the earlier slides. You see our kind of roll of honour there. So we've got we've always produced very good players from our programme, people like Jackson Ray, Nick Tompkins, who's currently playing for Wales. We've got Jack Singleton, who's an England international. So we have a reputation of producing very good players. We've also got on there alumni who have taken a slightly different route to the playing route. So Jack Sutton's now a high-level referee. Tom Gear's working in coaching. Alex Swyman's a player agent, and Sean Vine's a strength and conditioning coach. So they've all used their rugby to go off in slightly different pathways. But you can have a look at that when on the website. So the residential is just going into a little bit more detail. We've got 83 ensuite rooms on site, so they're ensuite, so they get their own bathroom, their own toilet. So it's a typical looking room there on the top left. Some of them are a little bit bigger than that, but that's a fairly standard room. Wardens are on site 24/7. There's a pastoral team who will look after welfare, student welfare and so on. They will do entertainment and enrichment activities with them as well. There's laundry and kitchen facilities within the building, so they don't need to bring all their laundry back every weekend. And then there's separate male and female wings, so they are segregated to some as you'd expect at 16 to 18. So if you're interested in residential place, select in the online application. You need to start the application process. So there'll be an option to tick the academy and then tick if you're interested in residential. You need to make sure you tick that. Then that'll kickstart a whole process in terms of applying for residential. Allocation is assessed on a suitability matrix of distance to travel. Now that is by public transport rather than distance as the crow flies. So as an example, Enfield is pretty close geographically, but actually by public transport, which is what most of our 16, 17-year-olds will be travelling, it's quite difficult to actually get to St Albans from Enfield on bus, train and so on. So it's not so much as how far away you live, but it's how long it takes you to travel by public transport. An academic reference, now that's not necessarily you have to be a straight A-star student, but it's about making sure if we're going to put a student into residential accommodation where they don't have parents breathing down their neck, making them do work of an evening and so on, if they're not suited to that environment, then that might go against you. So it's about making sure that teachers that you currently have would actually believe that you are a student who's capable of being self-serving and a bit more independent in terms of your study. And then sporting ability. So we will grade players on sporting ability. That's going to be very difficult this year for obvious reasons, but we'll do our best with that, and we'll see how we go with that. Now, the cost of it is £6,250 per year, term time only, but that's inclusive of 2 meals per day. So it's usually breakfast and dinner, and then lunch will be found in the canteen or whatever they've got in their fridges on site to prepare for lunch. They can stay at weekends as well if they wish, but most students will tend to head home at weekends and then come back on a Sunday evening. Now, the application process. So this video will show you exactly how to find the application, because it's not always as straightforward as you'd hope. Submit an online application, and then you will get an online academic interview, or it might just be a straight offer, depending on your application. We're still a little bit in the dark about whether we're going to be able to trial this year. I think it's unlikely. If we are able to get something on, it's probably going to be the other side of Easter, but even that at the moment is difficult to confirm. So we will have to do an assessment in some way. If we have a query over your playing level, we might have to make contact with you. Essentially, we need to make sure we have rugby players who are committed to being better rugby players. So it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a county level player or an international level player when you start, but we want players who are committed to rugby. You should be ambitious. You should be ambitious to improve. There needs to be some level of experience there, so it's not a case of you turn up and it's the first time you've touched a rugby ball, because we spend a lot of time. We're not starting at square one. We're trying to progress you beyond square one. So we're not explaining rules, explaining basic techniques, catch, pass, tackle, run. That should all be in place. So if you're a decent level club player, a good committed level club player, this should be right for you. Then it's about getting your grades. How that happens this year, again, is a little bit uncertain, whether there's exams or not. Then if we can, each year we start pre-season in early July. Again, that's to be confirmed. And then start of term is in September, as per any school. So from the start of September, games kick in, competitive games kick in, and everything, and college starts and everything becomes manic again. So that's the process, and that is the conclusion of the presentation. Hopefully I've covered everything. If you do have any questions, I think Lizzie will ask them now. If you have any questions whilst this is ongoing, please do add them to the question box. Lizzie?
Yeah, awesome. So we've had questions through. The first one is, are you still able to compete in the ACE League even if Saracens are not in the Premiership?
Yes, we're still a Premiership academy.
The next one is, can you stay with your current club academy whilst in the rugby programme?
Yes, club rugby is always a difficult one. The basic answer is we don't want to take you away from your clubs. But there'll be certain games, certain weeks, certain times of year where we might try and we would like you to try and prioritise rugby. And pretty much the only college rugby we would want you to prioritise is ACE League rugby and perhaps sevens, if you're involved in that. Club rugby is important. We don't want to remove players from the club game for 2 years and then hand them back at the end of it. But we work along the philosophy that players should be playing the best level rugby they have in any given week. They shouldn't be playing more than one game. So it might be a negotiation of playing half a game at the weekend and half a game on a Wednesday. It might be a little bit give and take on that at certain times of the year, but certainly not 2 games a week every week of the year.
Cool. So the next question, I know you touched on this a little bit, Chris, but this person's asking, during COVID, how do you intend to select students for the academy and when?
Yeah, it's difficult. This may have come in before the last slide we were on. We would like, in an ideal world, we will assess at trial. I don't think that's going to happen. We're probably going to have to offer places on the basis of playing history. If we have any queries over playing history, or if we have any queries over what level of player you are, we might need to make direct contact with you and try and arrange to come and see a club session or something like that. Ultimately, I think it is a bit of responsibility on you as an applicant. Are you a committed, competent club level player who has been playing for a year, 2 years, or have you just started playing a week before lockdown? If that's the case, then you need to understand that we aren't starting at square one when we start. When in your first week here, you'll be somewhere along the road in terms of player development, in terms of developing skill and so on, but we're not going to start coaching the basics from day one. It's a little bit more, we're a little bit further along the road than that. So there's going to be a little bit of responsibility on you as an applicant to make sure you are right for the program. And if you are uncertain whether it is right for you, please do. I'm more than willing to have a conversation with you and kind of guide your thoughts on that. But we're not looking to recruit 40 or 50 international rugby players or academy rugby players. We know that club rugby players will club level rugby players will form the majority of our academy. But we want to make sure you know what you're in for, and there is some experience behind what you're doing. Okay.
Awesome. So Oscar is asking, do you focus on specific positions, or do you separate between backs and forwards and just look for general skill and capability?
Is that in terms of assessment again?
It doesn't say specifically.
I'll answer both. If it's in terms of assessment, if it's in terms of assessing whether you're in terms of trial, we quite often, yes, obviously there's all different shapes and sizes and positions that will come through, and there'll be people with certain strengths and certain weaknesses. If you have a certain strength, for example, you are a big individual, then that will go in your favour. We're not expecting everyone to be fully rounded players. It may be that you are playing a position that we don't think is suited to you. So, for example, if you're a scrum half and you arrive, but we see something else in you, and you might be a better back row player or a better winger, for example. We're not going to dismiss a player because we don't think they're playing in the right position currently, but we might have that open up that conversation when you do arrive. So that's in terms of trial and assessment. So, in brief, no, we're looking at kind of everything. In terms of when you arrive, there are particular sessions that are for forwards, particular for backs. So there'll be individual sessions. For example, hookers will be doing throwing sessions with the hooking coach. The nines will be doing sessions with the scrum half coach, and then there'll be kind of scrum, line out, backs play, individual and small unit type sessions throughout the week as well. So hopefully that covers that question.
Yeah, awesome. The next question is, what stud type would you recommend for the 4G pitches at the college?
It's non-metal studs only, so it's moulded. I don't think blades are supposed to be used on 3Gs either. So in terms of kit, so we have I'll expand that question. So we have a training kit that we expect students to purchase when they arrive. It's if they buy there's gold, silver and bronze options in terms of kit. It's all provided by an external supplier who we have an online shop set up with. So we don't deal with any money, we don't deal with any kit, it all goes via them. You make your order. If you buy the gold kit, you'll have enough to see you through the week, and then enough kit to if you look after it, it will last you the full time you're at the college. If you and where you're going to be playing rugby 4 days of your week, and then whatever you're doing at the weekends as well, you're going to go through boots and trainers and stuff a lot quicker. So we always advise, get yourself a couple of pairs of boots, get yourself a studded pair of boots for the grass, and then a molded pair of boots for the artificial pitch, and a decent pair of trainers as well.
Okay. Another question, they're asking, do you have connections to any particular universities?
We have universities, we have individual kind of conversations with regards to university. So for example, we've got somebody who wanted to go to Swansea. Well, he wanted to go to Exeter University but didn't get a place at Exeter based on his course grades, but we managed to, through personal contact, get him a place at Swansea University, which is also in the Bucks Super League. And then we've got teams, ultimately it's a small world, but the rugby teams, rugby universities want to recruit the best players they can, and we'll certainly, if we think players are suited to that level of rugby and will be an asset to that university, we will certainly try and support that as far as we can in terms of phone calls, emails, whatever. I think does that answer that?
Yeah, I think so. The next question is, how many places have you got, and how many applications do you normally receive? So
we usually receive over 100 applications. I think this year is a little bit lower, but obviously COVID. Usually we end up with 50 to 60 new intake starting in September, and over the course of 2 years that might drop by 10 to 15. People who drop out for various reasons, sometimes it's not the right course for them, so on. We don't necessarily put a limit on the number of people. We don't have a cut-off number that we take 50 and then the 51st person misses out, but it's usually in that region.
Awesome, and this looks like the last question. It says, when will students know if they have been selected for the Rugby Academy?
So within the next couple of weeks, I will send an email out to kind of give a little bit more information on what the next steps are and so on. I think as long as you're we're understanding that we're going to have to take a punt on certain people if we aren't able to trial. If we have to base everything on CVs, coach references and stuff, we might have to take a punt on people. But I think if you are a club level player and you're motivated and you are focused and you want to improve your rugby, then there's no reason to think you won't be accepted. The only queries we will have over your acceptance onto the rugby program are, A, have you found the right course? Have you had we can make a rugby offer to you, but if you haven't been accepted onto a course, then we can't offer you anything in terms of the rugby come September. And secondly, as I mentioned earlier, if you arrive having offered a place and it's obvious that you haven't got the rugby experience that perhaps we've been led to believe, it might come to a difficult situation where we might have to reject you from the Rugby Academy at a late stage, which we obviously don't want to happen, because we don't want people to put all their eggs in one basket and then come September we realise that you're not the right fit, and then have to reject you from the Rugby Academy. So please just make sure that you are honest in terms of your appraisal of your own level of rugby, and then we can make a judgment on the information we've already got from you in terms of the questionnaire that you did, and if we need to follow that up with coach references or some other means of assessing you, then we will do so. But hopefully in the next couple of weeks we will have some more information for you.
Awesome. And then another question has just come through asking how many first years get accommodation.
So currently we have, I think it's about 25 maybe. No, not quite that many. That's about 20 first years currently. It depends how many vacancies there are moving out. So second years are obviously moving out, and I think the second year intake is a lot smaller than the first year intake this year. Ultimately, from experience, most people who apply get a space, but it just depends. You're up against the other academies as well, so there'll be that suitability matrix based on sporting ability, distance you travel, and academic reference. The process will be your applications will come in, you'll get a grading, you'll get a score, and then that score will be ranked, and then you'll find yourself somewhere ranked 1 to 40, 50, whatever, and then people will be offered on that basis. Now, I like to think that most people will probably get who want a place will get a place, but it might be a little bit of waiting while people sort of decide whether to take up their place or not, or people drop out. But previous years, people who haven't been offered a place come June, quite more often than not, have been offered a place by the time we start in September. But it just takes a little bit of patience just to hang on.
Awesome. And another question's come through asking, what are the timeframes for September 2022 admission?
So ultimately, there's you can wait and hold off on your application until the start of 2021. So September 2021, then you can start putting your application in. I mean, fingers crossed that everything will be normal by then. So we'll be able to do our normal open evening. We'll be able to do a normal trial. But ultimately, there's no real cut off in terms of applications. The critical thing, if you want residential accommodation, that's a critical thing, because there is a cut off. The cut off's usually around about May for getting your application in. But otherwise, we'll still take applicants even late August, even into early September. There's people who come in who make late decisions, and we can offer them a place or not in the rugby program then.
Awesome. That looks like all of the questions. Do you have anything else that you want to add, Chris?
I don't think so. I probably have missed lots of things. If anything occurs to you after we finish this, if you've watched it through again and there's any questions that arise from watching this through again, please get in touch. I just responded via email. I'll send this on email, and I'll send a copy of the slides. Please play the slides through and then hit the links, and that will take you to various points of interest. If you don't receive an email from me by the end of the day tomorrow, then please do get in touch. Chris.Waring, in fact, rugby@oaklands.ac.uk. That's rugby@oaklands.ac.uk, and I can then fire the information across to you. Sometimes emails do bounce back and so on. So if you haven't heard anything by the end of tomorrow, then please get in touch.
I've just put that email address in the live chat, so feel free to jot that down. We are actually holding virtual open days evenings, even next Tuesday and Wednesday next week. So if you're unsure about academic options and you want to jump on a live webinar, you can register for that on our website. Just a reminder. Obviously, you can go back and watch the ones that we held in November on Chris's presentation. But if you want to come and watch a live webinar for various different courses, then we're holding them Tuesday and Wednesday next week. And I think that's everything.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining us, everyone. The email address I've just put in the live chat, so feel free to shoot any more questions over to that. Thank you very much, Chris, and have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.